Assalamu alaikum, Farida here, Fashion with Faith Iman. Welcome to this series. Let's dive into how to work with the mindset of having nothing and being drained, and just, it's been a draining year. Oh God, every year it seemed like the last 5 years has been pretty hectic, but this has been one hell of a year. And as we know, it's also this sense of insecurity, because you can always wake up and work your job and put your family through school and buy the house and take care of the home and all the things that are, again, adult checklists, and take care of your medical. But if you're a government and your community is not healthy, you're facilitating in a community that's always in crisis, there is a underlying overwhelming PTSD, anxiety, panic attack mode that you're surviving in. It's almost inevitable for many of us to be there, even with our conscious faith and trying to be centered in faith. And then the day-to-day life, just day-to-day life, having to get groceries every day, having to, pick up and drop off, kids from school, or take yourself into the hospital or doctor's office. Just the small snippets of life that are a lot of things to do as an adult. There's a disconnect there. So what we want to focus on is just having the understanding that you have a powerhouse within you, and especially if you're in the Western world, to delegate those things out of your life. I'm big on get this out of my life. You do not have to answer every email. If you're one of those people and you find yourself overwhelmed, you're under the age of 50, for example, and you've been answering emails for 20-something years now, you have to understand the metrics. Have you been answering email for 20-something years and a bunch of rhetoric and things that can be time managed elsewhere, or things that they're just stressing you out? Push it out of your life. You don't need it. If it's not necessity, if it's not getting you more wealth, health, abundance, and you know that you can delegate it out, get it out of here now. Because what's happening is that we're so exhausted by the mundane, being on these phones and devices all day, being at work all day, being in our own head all day, that we need something more vigorous, something more alive, something more texture and a vibration that's higher than this thing than our community can sometimes offer. So if you find yourself doing the right thing again, like, I'm exercising and I'm eating okay and I'm talking to my therapist and I'm doing my prayers, but I still feel overwhelmed, it's because, again, these are social issues that are very vastly affecting so many people. It is very scary to think, well, even myself, sometimes I think, I don't hone in on these thought processes, but because I know, again, there's a level of flexibility, again, we have as Westerners, to think another thought, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. It's powerful just to think another thought. Forget another action, just the ability to free yourself and know that your mind can be open. But for example, I think, what are my kids are almost done with high school? Where's he going to college? What is college going to look like for him in a few years? What are we doing for college? And I've always thought this thought, and it had never really scared me until this whole year. Because, again, there's all this uncertainty around, well, is college worth it anymore for certain nuances? Is there going to be funding for certain things? How much debt is he going to be in? Do I want him to take on any kind of loans or debt? Of course, no. Okay, then how does that look like for my finances? How can I gather resources for him? And my daughter too, they're both about that age. When they got a few more years, they have college school, and that's it. And so it's understandable that, again, we are going to be scared. So I take that in. I take this idea in that, okay, this is not certain that this is going to be a return on our investment. Another thing that's a fear is, like, there's been more years working on this particular thing, and it's crushing me, it's crushing them, and I'm pushing these small people to do this big ambitious thing, which college is important, of course. I'm not talking about college per se, but the college in this particular place, how does that fan out, and what are some of the things that socially, economically, and in the government that I have to factor in that have honestly nothing to do with me per se, but everything to do with our future. Okay, so infrastructure, taking into accountability that the infrastructure is failing in a lot of ways, but then on pivot that and understand that I have options, they have options, we have options, you have options. You chose to be in the city you're in, you chose the career you chose the spouse or the person you chose, you have some understanding of how many kids you have. So if you know that, and if you know that something's changing in the government, something's changing in your structure, and your community is not where it needs to be, and you're burnt out, or you're trying to work with a quote-unquote nothing mentality, and you're just drained, you need to pivot back to understanding that you have options, and also you have grace. this timeline that you're worried about, that all of us try to predict, is in God's hand at the end of the day. But we do have some say, inshallah, in some of the things that we can plan, and how keep a little bit of leeway for yourself, a little grace, and open up the door. So, you know, planning for one type of university or 5, for example, may not be it. You might have to plan for community college. You might have to plan for different scenarios, because again, the world is vastly changing. For us, we are in a crisis a lot of the times, and we're doing our best. So we just need to figure out what are the options that are out there, and be open to different things. Open yourself up. And if you are a person that's kind of too open, get some structure. Those are going to be things that are going to gain you some confidence and some self-control, and give you some of that faith back. Assalamu alaikum.